Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The hall smelled faintly of vanilla cake and dust. Balloons sagged from the ceiling, their strings brushing the tops of heads as cousins I barely recognized circled with paper plates. I'd been rehearsing a dozen things to say to Grandpa Alistair after 3 long years apart. But the moment I saw him, slouched in a wheelchair near the head table, the words scattered. Roger, my husband, kept his polite smile fixed as he guided me past relatives. His grip on my elbow was firm, almost too firm. We barely sat down when he leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "Get your bag," he murmured. "We're leaving. Now." I blinked. "What?" "We just got here. Lara." His tone was low, urgent. "That's not your grandfather." A laugh bubbled up before I could stop it. "Don't be ridiculous." But Roger's eyes didn't waver. The ears, the jawline, it's off. I've only met him twice, but I'd swear in court that's not the same man. The words lodged in my throat. I turned back toward the wheelchair. The man there was staring down at his folded hands, unmoving, expression slack. Not once had he met my eyes. Not once had he spoken. I remembered the last phone call 3 years ago. The way my sister Marianne had said, "He's too tired to talk, Lara. You'll just upset him." That was the last time I'd even heard his voice. Roger was already on his feet, hand closing over mine. We walked out, my pulse hammering in my ears. No one stopped us, though I felt eyes burning into my back. By the time we reached the car, Roger locked the doors and started the engine. "Tell me I'm wrong," he said, not looking at me. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. Because now that the shock was peeling away, I realized something chilling. Roger wasn't wrong at all. The road unfurled ahead of us, gray and endless. Roger's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly the tendons stood out like wires. I stared at the passing fields, trying to stitch my thoughts into something coherent. 3 years. That was how long they'd kept me away from Grandpa Alistair. It began with subtle excuses. "He's tired today, Lara. He's not feeling well, maybe next week." Then the calls stopped altogether. Marian took over his phone to manage things. My mother insisted he was too frail for visits. Yet in my memories, he was never frail. He was the man who built me a bookcase from scratch because I'd run out of space for my paperbacks. The man who slipped folded bills into my coat pocket with a wink, saying, "Don't tell your mother." "Lara," Roger's voice pulled me back. "You didn't notice anything strange in there?" Before I said it, I hesitated. His hands. Grandpa's hands were always rough, calloused. The man in that chair, his were smooth. Like he'd never worked a day. Roger glanced at me, jaw tightening, and he never looked at you once. Not even when you stood right in front of him. I thought of all the letters I'd sent, birthday cards, holiday notes, never answered. My sister always had a reason. "He's resting. He's not up to it." And foolishly, I believed her. A sharp ache swelled in my chest. Why would they? I couldn't finish the question. Roger's eyes stayed on the road. If I had to guess, money, property, something worth lying for. The words hit like ice water. My family had always been complicated, but fraud, pretending a stranger was my grandfather, it was grotesque. I turned toward the horizon, feeling the threads of my past begin to snap. The man I'd trusted most in my childhood might have been gone for years, and I'd never been allowed to say goodbye. And in that moment I realized I was done believing their stories. The silence in the car had grown thick, the kind that presses on your ears. My phone lay face down in my lap, as if turning it over would summon the answers I dreaded. Roger finally said, "You need to call the police." My pulse jumped. "Right now?" He nodded. "Every second we wait is another chance for them to cover their tracks." I swallowed hard and dialed. The operator's voice was calm, professional, but I could hear my own panic trembling through the explanation. "There's a man at my grandfather's birthday party, but it's not my grandfather. My family has been keeping me from him for years. I think something's wrong." They took the address, assured me officers would be dispatched immediately. By the time we circled back, the driveway was clogged with patrol cars. Blue lights pulsed against the front windows, casting strange shadows on the drawn curtains. An officer met us at the door. "Mrs. Osborne, we need you inside." The scene was surreal. Vests were clustered in small, uneasy knots. My mother sat rigid in an armchair, her eyes sharp and cold. Marianne paced like a caged animal, and in the center of it all sat the man in the wheelchair, still silent, still avoiding my gaze. A detective approached me. "Can you confirm for us when you last saw your grandfather?" "3 years ago," I said, my voice low. "And that is not him." Murmurs rippled through the room. My mother's face hardened. "Lara, stop this nonsense. You're embarrassing yourself." The detective didn't flinch. "Ma'am, we'll need to verify his identity." I watched as they led the man away for questioning. He went without protest, his expression unreadable. But the knot in my stomach tightened, because deep down, I already knew what they would find, and the truth was going to be worse than I'd imagined. It was 2 days before the detective called. I had spent the hours pacing the living room, every creak of the floorboards sounding like an accusation. "Mrs. Osborne," his voice came through the receiver, low but steady. "I'm afraid your suspicions were correct. The man at the party was not Alistair Osborne." The room seemed to tilt. "Then where?" My throat closed on the question. "We've confirmed," he continued, "your grandfather passed away of natural causes 3 years ago. Your family did not report the death. Instead, they engaged a man, an acquaintance of your uncle's, to impersonate him at public appearances. We have evidence of continued withdrawals from your grandfather's accounts during this period." I sank into the sofa. Roger took the phone from my trembling hands, his voice firm. "What happens now?" "We're preparing charges for identity fraud, financial deception, and concealment of death. There will be interviews, Mrs. Osborne. Your testimony will be important." When the call ended, the silence was different, heavier, irreversible. The next day, I was summoned to the lawyer's office. Mr. Graves, a man with spectacles perched low on his nose, slid a folder across the desk. "This," he said, "is your grandfather's will. Everything, his home, his business shares, his personal accounts, was left to you." I stared at the papers, barely able to process the words. "They knew?" "Yes," Graves said, his tone almost apologetic. "Your mother, your sister, they were informed years ago. They chose not to tell you." It was as though every memory I had of them was being rewritten in real time. The laughter at holidays, the affectionate phone calls, they were camouflage. Roger's hand found mine under the table. "Then it's over," he murmured. But it didn't feel over. Not yet. The truth was out, but the damage had already been done. I had been robbed, not of money, but of time, of final goodbye, of the chance to hear my grandfather's voice one last time. And I wasn't sure forgiveness was something I'd ever find. The trial was swift. My mother, Marianne, and the so-called grandfather all pled guilty under a deal. Probation, restitution, and a lifetime mark on their records. I attended only the final hearing. When the judge read the sentence, Marianne turned to look at me. Her eyes pleaded for something. Mercy, maybe. I gave her nothing. Weeks later, I stood in my grandfather's study, the scent of old leather and pipe tobacco still lingering as if he'd just stepped out. The will lay signed and sealed in my hand, but it felt more like a gravestone than a prize. Roger joined me at the window. "You could sell a house," he said softly. "No," I whispered. "This is the only place they couldn't rewrite. I'll keep it, fill out the life they tried to steal." The phone rang once, Marianne's number flashing on the screen. I let it ring out, the silence afterward feeling like a door closing for good. I walked through the halls, touching the spines of books he'd once read to me, trailing my fingers along the banister he'd polished himself. Outside, the winter sun caught on the frost-covered lawn, turning it silver. For the first time in years, the weight in my chest eased. They had taken his last years from me, but they couldn't take what he'd left behind. Love, memory, and a quiet strength that was mine alone now. And with that, I locked the door.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.